It's 3.5 millimeters wide, 3.5 millimeters, okay? So this is quite thick, this wire, all right? And what I'm going to do is take this over to the rolling machine and roll it flat, because I'm going to make my bezel and my ring out of this stuff. They're beautiful. They're really beautiful. And they have a lot of light in them. And that's because on these Swarovski crystals, there is a mirrored back on the crystal. So it really makes this ring show up beautiful, you know. It's really quite a showpiece. I'm going to change the position of this oval before I set the stone, and then I can set it the other way. This way of wearing a ring is normal. That's normal. You see that a lot. You usually don't see an oval stone going across the finger. So I thought today I would make a special ring with the oval going the other way, and possibly putting a wire design around it too. This is 100% silver, and I'm going to run it through the rolling mill. This is a mill, and for this side it makes the metal flat, and for this side it's for making rod. And actually these are all gradated and go down to as fine as wire. You can't actually make thin wire, but you can make wire. This is a good example. That's about as thin as the wire you can make with this whole machine. This is a Thai-made machine, and it's got to be over 10 years old since I bought it. The price has gone up a lot. When I bought this machine, it was about 70,000, and now it's over 100,000 baht. So thank God I bought it about 9 years ago, 10 years ago, probably 10 years ago, okay? So I want to take a piece of this wire. I'm going to use these compound cutters. These are really lovely. Let me show you where it does the cutting. It does the cutting right there. So you see that you have, it's spring loaded right here, and you have the mechanical advantage with this. And you can cut steel wire with this very, very easily, all right? So, and it'll cut it like butter, actually. So I'm going to need enough for the ring and the bezel, and I'll use this piece. I haven't weighed it yet. As I roll this, the rollers are squeezing down, and what's happening is they're making it flat, but it's going to also get longer. And one of the things that I like to do is straighten the metal before I put it in the machine, so it doesn't warp out too much, because the machine itself will make the metal bend like a banana. You're talking underneath in this cabinet here is a 4 horsepower motor, and I'm going to take it through the machine, and I'm going to, each pass I'm going to turn this key and make it a little tighter so I can get to about, I want my bezel to be about 2 millimeter, okay? This is 3.1 or 3.2. Turn the machine on. And this machine is just too dangerous to use at school. Here we go. Now, I don't know if you can notice this, but you see it's gotten flat, all right? So I'm turning the key more, and the rollers come closer. And I have to look about how broad that is. It's about 2.1, 2.2, and the thickness is about 1.8, something like that. So I'm going to make it a little flatter. And look at how much longer it is. It's way long enough to make a bezel and a ring. Now that's a pretty nice thickness for a bezel, but I want to go a little thinner, and I may only roll half of it. So how do you do that? You turn the machine off. Okay, and then I'm going to reverse it and take it out. Okay, so I have two thicknesses here, and you can see that if you look very carefully, you can see the division where the metal is thinner and where it's thicker. What I really wanted to show you was the ring I made today. I spent about 4 hours making it. It's properly set. The bezel actually comes in around the stone, and I do that with a little hammer, a little ball-peen hammer. And this idea was to have the stone going laterally with the shank of the ring instead of the other way. Here's the way traditionally rings like this are made, where the shank is going one way and then the stone is going with the finger. So I made 3 of these. I'm having a lot of fun with these Swarovski crystals. In this one, I got the idea to put a wire that just undulates around the outside of the bezel. And it's a very strong ring. You can see that if I show you the inside, I don't know if you can see it here, there's a coating on there. There's a mirror coating on it, and that's why these crystals are so bright. But actually, this is considered costume jewelry. So they come like this in a bag. And trying to open these little Ziploc bags is too difficult. It's much easier to cut it with the scissors. And there's a stone. Now that stone, I'm inspecting it, is not scratched. But you see how beautiful it is. It's really amazing. Look at how nice they are. When you handle silver, your pliers need to be in really good order and not have them be oxidized at all, because it'll pass it on to the silver very easily, in fact. All right, now I'm going to use I was going to use this side, which is the thinner side, for the bezel. But before you do this, you've got to stop and you got to anneal this metal. It's very hard, it's just been rolled. The 2 gases here, this is LPG, the red one, and the blue one is oxygen, which makes the LPG burn. Now the LPG burns very carbony and yellow, so I'm going to light it here. This is an electronic lighter. Can you see the flame? Yeah, you can see it. And now I'm going to add oxygen to that flame. So light it again. Knock it down a little bit. And now I'm going to add the oxygen, and the flame will go blue. I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to make it a little hotter and add more oxygen. And hold the metal up. This bowl has water in it. Hold the metal up over here. I hope I'm in the frame. Start to heat this metal to a light red color. Now, why am I doing that? That's a very good question, because I'm doing that to soften it. So you see the red tail behind it, and the metal itself is getting to a light red color already. This torch is very hot. You got to be careful, in fact, you don't melt the metal and drop it in the water. You're going to make that approximately the shape of the stone, so you can compare it to the stone. I'm going to push this. It's very soft, by the way. And then one of the things you can do is lay the stone in there. Now I want the stone to sit on top. Plenishing hammer, which is a very special hammer. And I'm going to just flatten that a little bit, like that, and do it on the other side, reverse side. Very carefully, I'm going to try to fit the stone in and just see where I am. And that's pretty good, actually. Wow, what a good guess. I think I'm going to give it just a little bit more of a squeeze with the heavy pliers. So I'll take it like that, and I'm going to squeeze it a little bit more. There we go. And let's see how that looks. Now, the only way you can do this properly is to do it with experience. So there is no formula for this. It's all about where you put the pliers and where you squeeze it. That looks pretty good. Could be a little smaller than that. Just a tiny bit smaller. And where you squeeze it, that's the way the oval's gonna go. So now I've rounded it a little bit. And that's pretty good. Now, if you don't know where the margin is, I'm gonna point to it. The margin is what I can see of metal around that stone when I look in there very carefully. And put it in here, and I'm going to cut it right across with a jewelry saw. And I'm going to cut across this right here and then join it together with resoldering. So you just take your saw. This is a very easy process. Don't go really fast. There's no need to do that. What you will do is break the blade. So just let the saw do the work for you. And I'm going to cut this tab off, and then I'm going to cut right continually through it, and then join it back together again with soldering. So you can see I've almost cut the first layer already. And this is how you're going to make your bezel. Across now. Well, I'm almost through that first layer now, and I'm almost confident that I can pick the edge up and it'll just break right off. I'm that close to getting through it. There it goes. And now I'm going to continue to cut now through the second layer, and then I'm going to put these together. And I think I should take off a little bit more, but let's just go and see where we are right now. So I'm almost through this now. The saw cuts quite fast. Use the full stroke of the saw when you do this. Use the full blade. Don't work on just a little area. Use the full blade, full stroke, slowly, and cut right through this bezel. I've almost cut through the bezel now. Here we go. There it goes. There's a little piece. And I take that out. I'm going to save that piece in my scrap box. This is the pliers that I love to shape things with. It's really, really good. Okay, I want to get my round nose pliers now. Here's my big round nose. And I'm going to start to line this up, this cut up, and see what it's going to look like. All right, you can see the bezel starting to look like a real bezel. I'm a little bit too big, so I'm taking out about 1.5 millimeters out of this. I want to shorten it a little bit because I want the stone to fit in and have a very thin edge around it that I'm going to machine away until the stone fits in there perfectly. All right, so I'm taking out a little piece. You'll see a gap. This is a very tight shot. Try to keep the saw straight as you cut. And here comes a little piece. It's going to come out right now. You can feel it just before the blade breaks through the metal. So I'm about to break through the metal now. There we go. And there's that little piece I took out. Now I'm going to take my pliers and put this in the pliers. Hopefully you can see this pretty well. Don't forget, I don't have a cameraman for this. And squeeze that closed. And I want to focus right in on that point there. So I'm going to squeeze this together a little bit. All right, and I may squeeze it a little bit more oval. So there's the bezel, and there's the stone for it. This is about 450 baht 450 baht a bottle. It's very expensive stuff. And you mix a little water into it. It's already a paste, but you take a little water. Here we go, I'm picking it up right now. And I don't like to get it on my hands. It's not good for your skin, so it won't hurt you, but it is poisonous. So when you apply it, do it really cautiously, so you don't get it all over the place, all right? I'm turning my gas on. I want you to see that. A little bit like that. And light it and make a little bigger flame. Can you see that in there? And I'm going to add more oxygen. And I'm heating the bezel up, and I just want to put a little bit right there, and it melts in. I've already put too much on, but it's right. You're going to put this in the water with a tweezer, so don't pick it up with your hand. You'll find out the biggest mistake of your life if you do that. You'll get burnt so bad. Bring it over to the water and put it in the water. Drop it in the water. Okay, now turn the gas off first and then the oxygen off. All right, now let's take that bezel out and let me show it to you. I'm going to dry it off, file the extra solder off. So there's quite a bit of solder on this. I'm going to clean this up by turning the machine on, and the extractor makes a lot of noise. Start machining out. Where the stone is going to sit. Now I'm going to turn, this might be hot, so when you handle it, be careful. Make sure your pliers is not in the way. You put this away. Turn it off. And let's see what kind of a fit we have. Now, one of the things you want the stone to do is drop down inside there. You have to do this with a lot of caution. Is take a little piece of wood and just tap it down. Ball burr. And we're going to put this burr in, which is really a setting. You notice that this piece has two parts. Here it's straight, and here it's conical. So this is great for the wall. Take off a little bit more metal out of the wall, and this will give me the slant I need for the edge of the stone going in. Alright. Now again, you have to be very careful when you do it. These are made with the traditional ring where the stone is going with the shank, so that you would be wearing that way on the finger. But this new one that I made today is really different. The stone is going across the finger, and then there's this wire undulating shiny star that's not symmetrical at all, but it just a wire undulates around the bezel.